So I turned the movie on, and I really thought it was super smart and interesting to have the film sort of take place within a propaganda film.
Yes.
And the moment that, because that's where the movie starts.
Yeah.
Seeing that tone and that vibe, I immediately go, I'm gonna like this. With that first, when the kid jumps out in the line, I think that was like the first joke.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm ready too. He's like got a gun or whatever, and I go, this is fucking fun.
Yeah, they
like,
all chuckle.
This is hilarious.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about Starship Troopers because I had a really early experience with Starship Troopers
Okay.
in my life. I bring some baggage. And then,
True to form.
haven't seen it because of that baggage for years.
What is your baggage? Explain. Can we talk about it, or is it too sensitive?
Both. Settle in. No. I believe that Starship Troopers was the first R-rated film I ever saw in the theater. And I went with my dad, and so I would have been like 13.
I would say, if you have a young kid of 6, 7 years, and I think you can take them, but you have to talk about it before you go.
And I was a square kid, I was not cool. I was ridden with guilt. And so my dad took me to see Starship Troopers in the theater. It was a really big deal. First time going to see an R-rated movie.
Did you want to see it, or did he say like, was it his idea?
Both. I had seen the trailer and I thought that looks like a lot of fun. It looks like a kind of adult Independence Day. Like that kind of thing, like sci-fi. My dad was always famous for saying, I like a good sci-fi. Like my dad, not a big movie guy, but liked sci-fi adult flicks.
Sure.
So I think he was like, oh yeah, take my son to watch this R-rated movie, and what's the big deal? It'll be some shoot 'em up and blah, blah, blah. And the movie is like...
It's a lot.
It's so violent.
It's a lot.
It is so violent. And, there's some nudity and stuff that I was really uncomfortable watching with my dad, even though the nudity is really not that bad.
Yeah, it's pointless nudity.
It's not. That's not true. We'll come back to that. It's not. It's literally not. I just spent the last half hour of that movie with my face in my dad's shoulder. I didn't even want to watch.
I think when they're young, when they're a bit older, 12, 13, I think it's fine.
That's how.
Wow.
I was a very sensitive boy.
Well, I think it depends quite a lot on the child, too.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, parents are supposed to know their children, isn't it?
Right.
So, and care about that. And so they should really then, if they feel that is a very sensitive person, then they might be hesitant.
Because you didn't like it, or you were scared, or why were you felt guilty? I shouldn't be watching this?
It was a combination of feeling guilty and being grossed out. It wasn't so much scared. But there comes a point in this movie, in that third act, where it starts to get a little more violent and lots of action. It's really dark. It's really chaotic. There's just shooting. It's loud. It's really sensory overload. And I remember that combined with my guilt, for lack of a better term, would be oh my God, my mom would be so mad if she knew what I was watching. I don't like that. I'm not saying I was happy that's the way I was. Okay, we're getting into my deep-seated personal stuff here.
Yes.
But
lay down. Evan, tell me about your childhood. And
yeah, I was just kind of a wreck at the end of it, and it was not a good time. And I could tell my dad felt really uncomfortable, and he felt like he had made a mistake bringing me to this movie that was way more than either of us thought it was going to be. And so I haven't really watched it since then. I've caught little pieces here and there, but I've never sat and just rewatched it all the way through. Subsequently, I've read so much more about this movie in the last few years, especially about that it's more of a satire. It's not supposed to be taken seriously as a literal action movie. And so then I was I want to revisit this film and I want to discuss it, because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who love this film. I think there's going to be a lot of passionate people who really love this movie, with the understanding that it's more satirical, not to be taken too seriously.
so that's the perfect place to start. I obviously had never seen this film, as I have never seen all of the films that we watch, unless I suggest them. So I guess my first question is, do you believe it's satirical, A? And B, has that been any level of confirmed by anyone in making the film? And then my sub-question, what time was that confirmed? Was that confirmed in 97 and 98? Or is that confirmed in 2022?
Yes to all of it, and it was all back then.
Really?
So I had no idea going in. So Paul Verhoeven, the director of this film, Basic Instinct is one of my favorite movies.
You do love it.
And he did Showgirls, and he did RoboCop, and he did Total Recall. Like, he does these really bold, I would say, films
This is a bold film.
sure.
I would put this in that category.
that are generally speaking very violent, like a lot of sexiness. Like, they're very adult. Like, and I think the excess in those areas is very intentional and usually part of the point he's trying to make. So I think in the 90s, he had sort of this more of a reputation as being kind of sleazy. Like, I think he wasn't fully appreciated in his time. I kind of remember reading stuff like that. Like, oh, this guy Verhoeven makes Basic Instinct. He just, like, just want to see some tits, see some TNA, and it's gross and blah, blah, blah.
Just doing
Showgirls,
stuff.
Showgirls was
He did
totally,
Showgirls?
totally panned at the time.
Yeah.
And that's another one that kind of like this is getting like a modern day look back. Like, was it actually like smart satire? So anyways, when this film came out, he was pretty open about it being a totally kind of satirical, farcical send-up of what he saw as like fascist societies.
Starship Troopers being, of course, much more about the United States than about something else, is pointing out, say, okay, join up now, yeah, it's good, yeah, wonderful, great, but do you trust your leaders?
He intentionally was trying to make a statement about, like, in this fascist utopia, like, these characters that you're following are not even really the heroes of the story. Like, that's the point. And I think he was very open about that and talked about that, but the film was marketed as a straightforward action sci-fi adventure.
Yeah.
Hey, kid, what's going on? It's war! We're going to war!
Much to his chagrin.
Because that's what I remember. Again, I knew of Starship Troopers, and I immediately this sounds like nothing like I want to watch. Like, this is not anything I would want to watch. And it turns out it is, which is weird. But at that time, I was just like, yeah, I don't care about sci-fi action. And I remember it being like, oh, this is a horrible movie. And I remember people seeing it, but like, this is bad. It's one of those like B action movies.
Like how far he has fallen.
Yes.
Like to be doing this kind of movie.
That's kind of what I remember around that time.
Yeah.
I was like, this is just a bad action sci-fi movie, like one of those cheesy, like you might as well see the strings on the puppet type action movies.
I wish I had known personally going into that theater that this is kind of a comedy. Like, it's kind of intended to be a satirical comedy. And then I also want to know how come the reviewers of that time couldn't really get that memo? Because some did, but a lot were just like, this movie sucks. The performances are terrible.
The American press attacking the movie, they're saying you are making a pro-Nazi movie. That's basically what they're saying, isn't it? They don't say, oh, this is a subversive movie that basically comments on American society in some way, and we don't like that.
Judging it as if it's just a straightforward action movie.
So I think it's so interesting. I'm really fascinated by the film. I think it's a fascinating film. If you haven't seen the film, you should go watch it in general.
Maybe.
I think you should go watch it.
Depends on who you are.
I'm not saying you're gonna like it.
It's not for everybody.
Let me be clear. I'm not guaranteeing audiences will like it. People will generally like it. But I think it's really interesting. What are those? Not like a magic eye. But it's kind of like what you kind of see in it. I think there's.
Oh, the Rorschach test?
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. So.
Do you want to see the inside of someone's brains being sucked out of their head?
That's a scene.
Graphically. Then this movie's for you.
So I turned the movie on, and I really thought it was super smart and interesting to have the film sort of take place within a propaganda film.
Yes.
And the moment because that's where the movie starts.
Yeah.
And seeing that tone and that vibe, I was immediately go, I'm gonna like this. With that first, when the kid jumps out in the line, I think that was like the first joke.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm ready too. He's like got a gun or whatever, and I go, this is fucking fun.
Yeah, they
like,
all chuckle.
This is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is like airplane type comedy.
Yeah.
But then not that it goes away, but then it's so gory and it's so not what I would expect from that type of. Like when you look at Hot Shots Part 2 and he's mowing down people, like there's no blood, like it's played for laughs.
Yeah.
But that part isn't, like there's a lot of it not played for laughs. So, and I think that's where some of the confusion may come in, because some of the action is straight. Some of it is like there's just a lot of blood and gore and dead bodies and it's like nudity and just adult themes that you don't find. It really crosses those genres interestingly. So throughout the whole movie, I kind of go back and forth and I go, yeah, this is clearly satire. They're clearly making a statement here and poking fun at some of this stuff. But then also it's really long and they tell this melodramatic love story also. That's acted pretty poorly. And so then I go, well, is it? The runtime to me is the biggest thing where I go, man, that's like, if this was like just a satire, it'd be a lot shorter. Like, we get the point that you're trying to make. But this is over 2-hour movie. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes. Like, this should be 40 minutes shorter if it's like a comedy satire. But it's fucking hilarious. Like, there's so many jokes that I laugh at, so many funny observations and takes and satirical bits that they do. That's really funny. But they got this whole subplot.
It's kind of trying to be both, kind of.
That's what.
And maybe like that's very audacious of it.
Yeah.
And that maybe that makes it cooler in the long run. But like, I get your point, because like it is kind of having its cake and eating it too. It's like we're making fun of this, but it's also we're trying to make it kind of
like a decent
kind
movie.
of like an actual.
Yeah.
But that's great in terms of like, I don't know, like trying to disguise it, like trying to throw people, but that leads to the confusion. That leads to studios not knowing how to market it. It leads to reviewers not knowing how to review it properly. Audiences not knowing what the fuck they saw, because in your example to start this episode, you and your dad went to go see a certain film and you didn't see that film. That speaks to why it wasn't a big success. Well, it certainly speaks to why, it didn't find resounding success out the gates. Because like, if you go to, but that's a tale as old as time with like a unique film that the studio doesn't know what bucket to put it in. So they just say, oh, it's a teen action sci-fi movie.
That'll get people, because they don't give a fuck.
Gonna go see that. They want to see people shoot bugs and the cute, attractive people doing, and it's like, so that's what you go, oh yeah, I'm sure that's why my dad was like, this will be great. Just some young people fighting bugs in space. It'll be fun. And then you go and you're like, oh my God, this is something else entirely.
So many dead bodies. So many bloody stumps.
So much graphic violence. All of which age pretty wonderful. Like, I want to talk about that. I don't know if this is the natural segue, but
Segue Kings.
Segue Kings. Like, to me, this is this really like amazing time, this 96, 97, where it's like, this is almost the zenith. We just talked about the Labyrinth recently, about how like effects haven't improved that much. This to me is almost as good as we got before we just went full CGI and then we just like, we're trying everything. There's a good level of practicality here where they can, and like some real sets. And like, I think some of like the spaceship stuff, like it looks better than some stuff does now that's just all computer completely. And I think that's really fascinating. I think that the insects themselves look pretty good for a movie from 25 years ago.
It is a good combination of like practical sets and a use of supporting, because they're in real locations. Like they're, I mean, maybe not real locations. They might be like, but they like the rocks are real. Like they're in a location. You know, it's not all computer.
They're in Santa
graphics.
Clarita.
Yeah, they're somewhere. They're in a place.
Yeah. It's really, so you just watched it for the first time. Will you say you like it?
I thought it was great. Like, I just thought it was great because I felt like I was in on the joke. From that moment, that again, that first thing where that kid pops out, like those, and that whole like the propaganda video. To me says, oh, we're making fun of, because no one's ever done those types of, like Dodgeball does it too. Like those World War II duck and cover kind of things. Like no, like that's not a serious trope. Like that's not a real thing. We're only gonna play that satirically. And just some of the lines are delivered so clichély. There's like really cliche, like so. Like
that football scene. Like that was like they're doing like crazy flips.
All of it is just silly and goofy, and I love that they don't really. The best part about the film is that they don't wink at the camera. I don't think throughout the whole film that they like really stop and let you know that they're joking.
Well, that made me wonder like how many people were in on it.
That's my point.
I couldn't find much about that.
That goes like, I don't know. Like, I don't think Denise Richards thought that I thought that she was pitched an action movie.
She was doing her best.
She was doing her best.
And Casper Van Dien.
I think that's part of why they cast those people.
That's what I thought too. But then I read that that Verhoeven years later was kind of like, man, should have casted some like more talented performers. And then that made me think, like, so that he didn't do this intentionally?
So he didn't do it
like, so it is all a little muddy.
Yeah. That's why I asked if it came out later. If it, like, in hindsight, you'd be like, oh, people kind of took it as this, so I'm going to run with it. I'm going to run with the narrative.
Yeah, I'm going to say that.
I'll just say that because it saves me.
I think Wikipedia, and I read a couple other articles that make it sound like he was giving interviews at the time of the film's release, saying like, this is a satire. Everyone knows this is a satire because it's loosely based on a book from the 50s, also called Starship Troopers.
Right.
That was this, but inverted. It wasn't satire. It was very pro-fascism.
Because the book of Robert Heinlein, one of the, at that time, important science fiction writers, is militaristic and fascist.
And so they took it and wanted to upend it and like make fun of
how serious you took it.
Yeah. And so that's like really smart and fun.
Yeah.
But it's still, they can be all that, but still be a little like tonally inconsistent within that. And I think that's what's kind of tough for me, is because maybe it's the hyperviolence, but I think that's part of it too, is that they're just all...
It's like over the top. I mean, it is over the top violence.
Yeah.
So everything is done over the top. Yeah. All the lines are dramatically over. The energy is over macho.
Yeah.
Everything is too much. So like it does fall in line.
And it goes so like, so let's just say that you cast these people who aren't great actors, like beautiful people.
Yeah, they're all very attractive.
And Denise Richards. I had a moment where I like saw Denise Richards again. I haven't seen her in
a
the
long time.
90s, and it was really just like, oh my god, I was like struck by her in the 90s.
Yeah, in the 90s.
Like, I remember going to see
90s
her,
woman.
and being like, oh my god, Denise Richards is like
so
makes
beautiful.
me sick. She's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I haven't thought about her in 25 years, so I just like saw her in this movie. I was like,
wow,
oh my
young
god,
Denise
yeah.
Richards
All of a
is
sudden, I'm 13 again. I'm getting
so
like,
beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, but like, so you hire these like really beautiful people who aren't great actors at all. But like, are you coaching them to do it in this sort of way? Are they aware? Like what's this balance? Because it's not just like, to your point, it'd be shorter if it was just a straightforward satire. Because then you have these people that aren't great performers, but you are telling this really in-depth story. And in that second act, in like their training, you're just there with them forever.
Yeah, it's
like, so you're telling a more complete tale with actors who aren't very good. Is that all part of your satire? Like, it's tough.
Did this come up very much, just like discussing the film on a thematic level, talking about it as a satire of fascism, or was that not part of the conversation?
You know, they gave me the script and I had an audition for it, and that didn't come up per se in the conversation.
It's so hard to find the line of what people's true intent is when things toe that line so well. And this film is a great example. I think Glass Onion is also a good example. It's like, did you go with Glass Onion to make a film that presented itself as clever but was really, really basic at its core, just like the theme of your movie, so you make a movie that's like that? Or did you just try and make a good movie? Did this person just try and make a good movie?
I think they try to do both. I think that's the point, is that I think Rian Johnson tried to do both, and I bet you Verhoeven here is trying to do both. Like, I'm trying to make a good, entertaining film, and also it's this really biting satire of like ultra-fascism, hyper-violence, and a society that has completely lost its way because fuck fascism.
Still, we wanted to tell the story of a really wonderful, adventurous story about these young boys and girls fighting bugs, but we also wanted to show that these people are really in their heart, or without knowing it, I would say, they're on their way to fascism.
Like, I think that's what it's trying to do, but that's a really hard line to balance. And this film, I suppose, does it pretty well, but it does, like, I don't know, I don't want to say it drags, but it starts to feel like, okay, like, this is funny. I get it. I'm getting it. But like, how much longer do I have to watch Johnny Rico act?
Yeah,
like, how much longer?
No, after like that middle part and like that whole middle part. It's like a drama, you know. It just becomes overly dramatic, and we're just here too long. Like that's my biggest criticism of the film, is that it just keeps going, and going. I like the beginning and I like the end. I could, like, you can cut out the middle. you can cut out 40 minutes of this movie, and I just get the point that you're trying to make, and I think it's equally as funny.
Yeah, there's something. I don't want to keep harping on that TRT, that total runtime, but like there is something to that where it's like, if your entire film is sort of predicated on a joke, and this general joke of satirizing fascism and all hard right, extremist, violent people,
It runs out pretty quick.
yeah, like it's hard to keep that fresh for a long period of time. And so even though there's like, and so maybe that's why, you'd say if you were making that film, I try to do some cool action stuff. I try to put in some fun stuff. Like I try to make it entertaining and put in some jokes along those lines. But just at the end of the day, you're just kind of like, okay. If you're telling me that this movie is not meant to be like a great movie, it's more to be like a great send up, a great point, then like I get the point. So if I go in knowing the point, which is what I do now because I've read that that's what it is, then it's like, oh, okay, I get the point in 10 minutes. This is cool. This is funny.
I think he set these people up to fail.
Yeah, I kind of think that too, to an extent.
Yeah, and that's why you have all that other shit. I like, if the director really believed that we're gonna make a satire film, I think he told very little people, if that's even the case. I still don't even fully believe that this is a film that is a satire film.
It is.
Like it is, but like I just keep going, but there's too much that also points to it not being.
There's just, like we said, there's some inconsistencies. So I feel like it can be that he's just tried both, where he's like, I'm trying to make a satire, so I'm kind of making some of this bad on purpose. But I also have an ego, and I want people to think this is cool. So I'm gonna put in some cool stuff too. And then that's what starts to be a little imbalanced. And that's the stuff that we can pick up on as we watch. Because it is just like a little imbalanced. It's a little laborious.
Yeah.
But it's mostly fun, but gross.
Yeah.
It's really gross.
It's very gross. But it's my type of humor. I do think, I thought, I laughed a lot out loud a handful of times. Like, I think it's really funny. I also think it's interesting that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like they lose every fight.
Yeah.
And I assume that's another part of poking the fun. Like, we're getting crushed. Like, the humans are...
Yeah, but they stay
but
like,
they still go, we can do it. We're going, yeah. And they go into
bugs.
another ambush, and more people die.
Yeah.
And at the end of every fight, they do the news coverage, and it's like, we're doing okay. And it's like just dead bodies. And again, that's funny.
Yeah, I was reading about how it is like a sad ending, even though they do win the last fight, because the ending is...
They don't win sorry.
Well, yeah, they capture this, and there's hope, right? They capture the big bug, and it's afraid, which is also supposed to be like, to show you that the humans are the villains. Like, that's the point, is that the humans are the villains in the story, and the bugs are just like defending themselves, because there's a couple like kind of seemingly throwaway lines like, oh yeah, there's apparently like, it's because humans are colonizing all these places, and that's why these bugs have had to take to these asteroids, and now they're trying to fight back. Like, it's literally the bugs are just self-defense.
Yeah.
And so in classic human form, and now they've captured this bug, and it's like the thing that gets them all bloodthirsty and happy is it's saying it's scared.
Yeah.
Like this thing is scared.
It's afraid. It's afraid!
Yeah! Like, and it's like, you guys are the problem.
Yeah.
But then at the end, like this character, Johnny Rico, who was initially just very like, kind of waffly and didn't know what he wanted to do, and the whole universe was his oyster to explore. I want to go on vacations. I don't know if I want to sign up. I'm going to follow this girl into the thing. And he becomes like this hardened, shitty military man for life. And like that's supposed to be kind of a sad ending. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of stuff to dissect.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting. I mean, I didn't think about it as such clear terms as you put it, but when you say it, you're like, oh my God, we are the villains.
Yeah.
Like, I knew we were buffoons. I didn't know we were, but, so yes, it makes a ton of sense when you explain it that way. Because I thought it was super interesting that, like, the victory happened off camera. Like, you never see the success.
What's going on? They got it!
Because they just fought that brain thing, the intelligent one, and, they like barely escape.
Yeah.
And then they come out and they're like, what happened? Like, we did it. Like, you would think in a real action movie, that's the biggest point of your movie.
Yeah.
Is seeing them win.
Yeah.
But you don't.
Yeah.
And then you just feel like, they're afraid. Yay, that's a win. Now we know how to beat them.
Yeah, but then if you flip it, like it is kind of a thing that we talked about mysteries working forward and backwards again in Glass Onion, where it's like this works backwards, where now you watch it again, and if you look at it as the humans are the villain invaders, it's kind of sad.
Yes.
And then that last line is really sad, like this hideous creature, but this is like got its thing cut off, and it's just like
it's like
petrified.
It knows it's gonna die.
Yeah, and then it's these bloodthirsty fucking animals.
Yeah.
Co-ed shower scene.
Yeah, you think it has point?
I read about it, so this is not me figuring it out on my own.
Sounds like...
I'm going to cut that, though, so it says, like, yes, let me
enlighten me.
I could tell when I was 13, buried my face in my dad's shoulder. I also remember that my dad, like, covered my eyes in that shower scene, and I couldn't tell if he was doing it to be funny or not, so that was another reason why the vibe was kind of awkward. Because my dad didn't care. Like, my dad probably wanted me to be staring at titties when I was 13. But he like did this motion, and I was like, ha 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 ha. But he kind of put it back, and I was like, wait, so are we not doing this?
Well, what a great symbolism for the actual film. Like, is this funny? Are we taking this seriously?
Is this a
what am I
moment?
doing?
Yeah. Am I allowed? Is this adult?
Should I be laughing? Should I be crying? What should I be doing?
Is mom here? So the co-ed shower scene, I think the point that I was reading about is that it's supposed to help reinforce that these people in this shitty fascist ultra-military society have become so obsessed with their career and their advancement and that aspect that there's zero sexuality happening in that scene. That you have this co-ed shower, which to normal people is like, what? Like, oh, this is so titillating. Can you imagine? There's boobies there, and these guys are naked. Yeah. But it's like none of them do anything sexual at all. They're not checking each other out. They're only bragging about what they want to accomplish in the military.
Oh, I'm going into politics, and you gotta be a citizen for that, so here I am.
Yeah.
And so that's the point, and that's kind of neat, I think.
Sure. Well, you have convinced me. I thought it was going to be a stupid thing.
No, it's very intentional.
That does make sense.
They're like, even these, like, because they're all super attractive people.
Yeah, they're all...
They couldn't give a shit. Like, they're not interested. They want to talk about how they're going to advance in the military.
Yeah.
Like, that's
interesting.
Yeah. I felt bad for, like, it's hard to, like, get into, like, the specifics of, because that's the other thing. That's my main point. My main takeaway in this roundabout way that we're having this conversation is, like, it's hard to have a conversation about this movie that is anything other than the satire of it. Because, like, okay, if we agree that it's all satire, kind of intentionally bullshit, then what's the point of talking about any of the details, of which there are a million problems, a million inconsistencies, a million stupid things that happen or whatever, but that's the point. So then that's what as I watched the end of this movie this morning and was reading about it, I was like, fuck, this is gonna be tough to talk about because you can't be like, well, it was really stupid when this happened, because it's like, well, that's the point. Yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
But to your point, I mean, this is mirroring our Glass Onion episode. I'm not trying to make it about that, but that was to your point. And this film isn't doing it like Glass Onion was, but it is sort of a level of defense. It is, well, you can't talk about sort of the craft of, the story falls apart, or there's holes in it, or like the performances are really shitty, or the graphics are shitty, or like whatever. Yeah. Because, well, it's supposed to be. That's always like you're out if you make a film like that.
Yeah.
But I do believe the intent a lot more with this film than I do Glass Onion. Like there's enough evidence there to say, some people were in on it. I'm just curious, like how much.
Yeah.
I really don't think the actors were. I really believe that's Denise Richards doing her best job. I believe that's Rico's. He's doing the best he can.
Yeah, because like I said, there's no evidence that they can do more than that in the rest of their careers. Like, they both had very, like, meaningful, successful careers, so I don't mean to diminish that, but, like, they weren't doing, like, high-end dramas.
Yeah. I can't act either. Like, I'm not trying to be insulting.
Yeah. Is there any moments of, like, genuine emotion that you feel, or is it all just...
No.
Because I think, if I may be so bold, and I'm just making this up as I say it, so...
That's all I do.
I'm just talking on my ass. I'd like to ask you a few questions.
All right, that's it. Now it's my turn.
If there would be a way, like, could a different director, I don't want to say better, but like, could someone else have done a story like this, but still sprinkle in like surprising scenes of emotion, like when Diz dies, right? Like that's a moment where you would naturally that's the closest you get in this movie.
I was blown away
because there's
I got
half a
blown away.
second.
That's, yeah.
Like she
I was like,
dies,
oh, shit.
and that's played kind of seriously.
Yeah.
Like as serious as anything is in
That
the film.
moment, not her death.
Yes, but like that split second as she's like dying, like, and then but right before she says like, "I'm just glad I had you" or whatever, I got to have you. Like
And
that was
like,
rough.
Too much.
But up to that lead up was like, oh shit, there's a moment, and it's like so it's like maybe this film would be better, more well-rounded, I should say.
It would
if there's like moments of like, okay, yeah, this is all satire, hyper-violent, crazy, but fuck, all of a sudden, I'm just, you're made to feel something. You're like, oh God, oh God. And then that's more impactful because then the effects of this horrible fascist society are like literally making you feel sick and sad.
Yeah.
And then it's back to kind of fun, and then it's like, one more time. Somebody dies, Dizzy dies, and it's just played. Because that's the thing, if you casted these actors purposely to be good actors, they could handle a scene like that, where it's like, oh no, we're gonna give like a little Saving Private Ryan scene for this 3-minute death scene, and I want everyone in the theater to be sobbing.
Yeah. But I don't think that was the tone.
I know, but I think that's a mistake.
I do too. Yeah, I mean,
like that would be better.
I think it's a mistake because I keep going back to the time. It's a mistake because of how long it is. If this movie is shorter, you can get away with this. I don't want to say one note, but for lack of a better way, like, we're making a point here. This is the point. This is all bad to show how stupid and bad this is. That's the point we're making. It should be an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what it is. But now if we're going to play it a little closer or try and meld these two genres together as much as possible, now we have a little more leniency to have some scenes that add up to something, that pay off in a way where you're emotionally really invested.
Yeah.
But everything is delivered through this soap opera lens. Everything. So you're right. You can't nitpick this movie. You can't really dive into the filmmaking aspects of this movie because it came with a singular purpose.
Yeah. Beyond the satire.
Yeah. So like that's what it is, and that's what it needs to be sort of judged on. I'm trying to think of other comparable films.
Yeah.
And maybe like Don't Look Up is a close comparable film of. In today's world, like that's clearly like poking fun at our society today to prove a point of how dumb people have become on both sides, maybe.
Yeah, but even that one was more of like a straightforward comedy. Like the satire was so obvious. But to my earlier point, I'd say Don't Look Up did a better job in the way like there are moments of true emotion in Don't Look Up. Like when Jennifer Lawrence has her breakdown on the news and she makes some great point. Or at the end of that movie, they're all sitting around the dinner table. That was like a really like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Where he's like,
the thing of it is we really did have everything, didn't we?
We really did have it all, didn't we? Like that kind of whatever that scene was. Like so like if you could have sprinkled 2 or 3 of those into Starship Troopers, then you're really talking about
you
a
get
pretty
Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence to be in your film, and you're gonna have some good scenes.
Yeah.
So
you blew it.
So that I think that's the better version of this film.
Well, that's going to be a hot take that people that love Starship Troopers don't want to hear. What it needed to be.
That's the better version of of filmmaking. Like if you want to make a better film, I think that's the better version of it.
I'm not going to agree with that on camera.
I'm not talking about the messages. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to, like, it has nothing to do with political.
No. I know.
That's not my point.
I know.
But that's exactly what you're saying. I feel like that film does a better job of towing the line of being straight without cheesy, but then also ramps up the cheese when it needs to.
Sure.
Wonderful. Well, I think we're done.
Yep.
Okay.
Verhoeven, I just think we should go back and look at all his movies again. That's what I'd say in closing. Verhoeven was doing a lot of interesting stuff that was very like social commentary, and I think he got swept under the rug a little bit because they were, like I said, violent and sexual, and oh, this guy's a sleaze peddler. But I think he was really making statements, and I think we should do more of his movies.
Well, I think, do you think, here, and we can maybe end on this question, do you think that exists today? Can that exist today? Where I feel like, can directors make statements anymore? Can there be?
Sure.
But
Don't Look Up is a statement.
You're right.
A lot of directors are making statements all the time.
I feel like,
but they're not typically in very hyper-violent, hyper-sexualized ways.
Sure.
As a general statement, it depends on what your point is right now. Like, not to get political, but like there's an acceptable there's acceptable statements to be made right now. I think making movies that are like lampooning the, like violent sexual movies that are really lampooning Nazism, but in a very like subversive way, like Starship Troopers is, would be tough to make right now for a lot of reasons, because people need it to either be an all agreed upon message, or it needs to be really, it holds your hand to let you know that we're not celebrating these fascists. We're making fun of them. Like, it really needs to hammer that home.
So, I mean, how do we end this? I wish we could do a propaganda video on our own.
Oh, yeah. That would be funny.
Like, follow the Bluff Council.
These boys are working hard.
The Bluff Council presents The Perils of War, brought to you by cigarettes. Cigarettes, look at a go. The boys of the Bluff Council are working hard to stay in tip-top shape as they prepare to defend their mediocre film opinions to the hordes of keyboard warriors who hate them because they like glass onion for some reason, probably brain damage as a child. Yes, these boys are constantly exercising and eating healthy, doing what needs to be done. Oh yes, we sure are proud of these boys. Okay, enough of these guys. Bring back the dame with the cigarettes. Oh yes, that's right, baby. Blow in my face. And spit on me.
I had to point this out because I just noticed this for the first time. In this scene in Starship Troopers where they're pulling Rico back from the fight, there's an extra on the far right of the screen that is just shamelessly checking out Diz's ass. You can see he looks down and he's like, what? And I'll put it in slow motion here. You can watch his eyes look at her, down to the ass, and then it looks like he might kind of go, damn, at the end. Damn. Like he's just starting to say it. You can see it. And I just want to say, I salute this gentleman. This is a fantastic detail to have picked up on a rewatch.